Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. How you doing? Good, I hope. Whew, it's been a heck of a morning for me. Shakyamuni is going to take a little bit of a shift here. We are talking about Tathagata field, but he's responding to Kashyapa, Bodhisattva Kashyapa, and his question being, how difficult is it to perceive this Tathagata field, this Buddha nature, yeah? And what now Shakyamuni is going to concern himself with is the nature of our practice. Of course, he's going to be speaking to people who may have been practicing for 40 years along with him. But remember, this is 2,700 years ago, approximately. And these people, they didn't have the information, even the language, even the desire to locate this deeper consciousness within themselves. To them, life was still very magical and mystical. Their primary influence being the cacophony of different versions of Hinduism and Vedic writings and translations and so forth. Really, an old culture steeped in mysticism. And they had no reason to question it because their lives were pretty simple. With the caste system of people living in a certain way and doomed, really, but accepting that that was the way they were going to live their entire lives. That was their loosely termed purpose in life. That's the role they fulfilled within the society, the culture, the land, the peoples. So to approach them with the idea that they were in control of their condition of their own life actually was a dangerous thought. So they had to be cultivated for long, long periods of time. And some would get it and some still would struggle. Some would walk away, of course. So he's still talking to those people because remember, for 8 previous years, he's taught the Lotus Sutra. And so all of the people who are here now are either celebrating and lamenting his departure, celebrating his life, lamenting his departure, or there are people, as he started this collection of sutra, who are there to ask their final questions about their final doubts. And so he's collecting them all here, right? So he has to go back to having an expectation from your practice, which is why I'm consistently telling you the reason for my whole mission here with creating this resource, either YouTube or podcasts or the website, the bookstore, on and on, is to provide you with enough material for your study. But why do you study? To raise your confidence so that you can ply yourself with confidence, with dedication, with the expectation of results. Right? We don't just do this as a habit. We just don't do this to have potlucks together as an excuse to call ourselves members of an exclusive club. We do this with a purpose. And in order to have purpose, we samsaric beings have to have goals. And the lofty goal of enlightenment can sometimes seem elusive. So you have to have confidence that it's a moment-by-moment achievement. You may attain enlightenment one day, and that incredible insight or insights will live in you for a day, a week, a lifetime. But you still must negotiate the Saha world, yeah? So that's what we're about. And Shakyamuni is going to give us some examples of having this kind of maintained expectation. Okay? So here we go. O good man, as an analogy, 100 blind persons consult a good doctor for a cure. With that, the doctor opens up the membrane of the eye with a golden barb or blade, and then, holding up one finger, asks, "Can you see this?" Okay, let's see. So, doctor opens the membrane, and he holds up one finger, and he asks the patient, "Can you see this?" I'm laughing because I'm going through medical stuff myself. How timely. Anyway, the blind person says, "I cannot see it yet," hopeful. Then the doctor holds up 2 fingers and 3 fingers. Then the person says that he can see to some extent. O good man, when this wonderful sutra of the great MahaPariNirvana, as well as the great Lotus, right, is one that has yet not been delivered by Shakyamuni Buddha, the same is the case. Although innumerable bodhisattvas may well perfectly practice the paramitas, the spiritual perfections of the earlier teachings, they might only reach the stage of the 10 abodes, and yet may not be able to see the Buddha nature, the Tathagata field. If Shakyamuni Buddha speaks, they may see to some extent. When these bodhisattvas have seen all, they will say, "Oh, wonderful, oh, world-honored one, we have been repeating the cycle of birth and death, and we have been worried by selflessness." O good man, such bodhisattvas may well reach the stage of the 10 soils, the stages of bodhisattva development, and yet they cannot clearly see the Buddha nature. How could Shravakas and Pratyekabuddhas well see it? Also, next, O good man, for example, one sees geese flying far off in the sky and wonders if they really are geese or just the sky. One looks carefully and sees this indistinctly. The case of the bodhisattvas may also be like this. They see but a small part of the nature of the Tathagata field. How could Shravakas and Pratyekabuddhas well see it? Right? He'd been trashing on the Shravakas and Pratyekabuddhas for years and years, yeah? But in the Lotus Sutra, he demonstrated how they could get beyond that. They could get beyond their ichantika nature, you know? So he's bringing it up again. O good man, the same is the case with the intoxicated man, who has a long way to walk, but can only see the way indistinctly. This is the case with the bodhisattva at the stage of the 10 abodes, who can only see a small part of the nature of the Tathagata field. Think of the Tathagata field when I talk about time, moments, moment to moment, seeing in that moment all the cosmos behaving in the way that it does in totality and individuation, without resorting to labeling, identifying, owning. See, that's samsara. Can you just stay up with the flow? Can you see the natural momentum of the engine of life? Can you see with excitement the transmutation of energies into expression and then experiencing that expression with great appreciation and compassion leading with an expectation of perfection and beauty and full expression without hindrance. Can you? This is enlightenment, yes? O good man, for example, there is here a man who is in the middle of a great ocean. Far out, an innumerable 100,000 yohanas away, he sees a great galleon, the rudder tower and storied building, parts of the ship. He looks and thinks to himself, is this a rudder tower or is this the sky? I mean, it's coming up over the horizon. He can barely catch it, yeah? Just sees that top part. He thinks. He looks for a long time and his mind becomes fixed. And he comes to know that it is a rudder tower. The same is the case with the bodhisattva of the stage of the 10 bhumis, who sees within himself the nature of the Tathagata field. He goes from perceiving that it might be there, then he delves with more confidence in dissecting that it's there, and as it approaches, as he gets closer to it, does the chicken cross the road or does the road cross under the chicken? For example, there is a prince who is weak in physique and who passes the night in playing, and it is now dawn. He tries, but he cannot see clearly. He stayed up all night. The case is like this. The bodhisattva of the stage of the 10 bhumis thus sees the nature of the Buddha nature within himself, and likewise, what he sees is not clear. So he's talking about people at different stages of practice, yeah? And sometimes that's never a linear thing. Sometimes we gain great insights and then we backslide, yeah? I don't like using that term, but you understand what I mean, right? We go on vacation, we go out with a bunch of buddies, we go whatever. We get distracted. Also, next, O good man, for example, a government official driven by routine work of this kind, comes home late in the evening. There's a flash of lightning for a moment, and he sees a group of cows. Then he thinks, is this a group of cows or a cloud or a house? Right? You ever see silhouettes of things in the dark when lightning flashes? He looks for a good while and comes to the conclusion that they are cows. And yet, he cannot be too sure. The bodhisattva of the stage of the 10 bhumis sees the nature of the Buddha within himself, and yet he cannot see it clearly. The situation is like this. Oh, what a confidence breaker, yeah? This is being mired in doubt. Also, next, O good man, a bhikshu who upholds the precepts looks at some water in which there are no worms, and yet he sees a worm and thinks to himself, is the thing that moves in the water a worm or just a bit of dust? He stares at it for a good while. Even after he realizes that it's a piece of dust, he's not quite sure. It seems so. The same is the case with the bodhisattva of the stage of the 10 bhumis, who thus sees within himself the nature of the Buddha, the Tathagata field, but nothing is still very clear. Also, next, O good man, for example, a man sees a child in the darkness far off. He thinks, is this a cow, a man, or a bird? He keeps gazing at it for a goodly while. He now sees that it's a child, and he does not see it very clearly. It is thus. The same applies to the bodhisattva who is at the stage of the 10 bhumis and who sees within himself the nature of the Buddha, Tathagata field. Nothing is completely clear. Right? So conceptually, he knows what he's looking at, looking for, trying to perceive, but that doesn't mean he's fully realized, yes? O good man, the Buddha nature that one has is the deepest and most difficult thing to see. Only the Buddha consciousness, that ninth consciousness, can know it well. It is not within the reach of the Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. O good man, the wise should see thus and know the nature of the Tathagata field. Bodhisattva Kashyapa says to Shakyamuni Buddha after hearing all of this, O world-honored one, the Buddha nature is very delicate and difficult to know. How can one perceive it well with the fleshly eye? Shakyamuni Buddha says to Kashyapa, O good man, even thoughtlessness, non-thoughtlessness, the pure land, is also not within reach of the two vehicles, Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. When one accords with the sutras, one can well see it by dint of the power of resolve. Hello, Nichiren. Right? He just popped into view, didn't he? How often does Nichiren exhort us to deepen our resolve? Deepen our strength of conviction. O good man, the same is the case with the Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas who accord with the MahaPariNirvana Sutra and who see themselves the nature of the Buddha Tathagata field. O good man, because of this, one should make effort and learn the great Mahayana, Lotus, and Parinirvana Sutras. O good man, Shakyamuni Buddha nature. That should just say Buddha nature. Sorry about that. Buddha nature, as such, can only be known by Buddha. Buddha alone, and is not within the reach of Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. Bodhisattva Kashyapa said to Shakyamuni Buddha, O world-honored one, unexalted common mortals possess the nature of common mortals, and yet say that they possess self. Shakyamuni Buddha says, as an example of this, two persons are friends. One is a prince, and the other a poor man. They associate with each other. Then the poor man, on seeing the prince possess a very bright sword, covets it. The prince later flees to other countries, taking the sword with him. The poor man later puts up at the house of another person and in his sleep cries out, the sword, the sword! A person nearby hears this and goes to the king. The king says, you said sword. Tell me where it is. The person tells of it in detail. O king, you can cut up my body and cut off my feet, and yet you will not be able to get the sword. I was once on close terms with the prince. Before we were together, and I saw it, but I did not touch it. And how could I take it? The king further asks, what was the sword like, which you say you saw? The man answers, O great king, it was like a ewe's horn. The king, on hearing this, smiles in amusement and says, don't worry. In all my storehouse, we do not have any such sword. How could you have seen it with the prince? Then the king asks all of his ministers, have you ever seen a sword of this kind? So speaking, he dies. Then another prince ascends the throne. He also asks the ministers, have you ever seen in the governmental storehouse any sword of this kind? All the ministers say, we once saw it. What was the sword like? They replied, it was like a ewe's horn. How could there be such a sword in my storehouse? 4 kings, one after the other, ask and check, but they cannot gain it. Sometime later, the prince who had fled the country returns and becomes king. On ascending the throne, he asks the ministers, have you ever seen the sword? They reply, O great king, its color was pure, and it was like an utpala lotus. They also answer, it was like the horn of a ram. They further reply, it was red and like a fireball. They answer too, it was like a black serpent. Then the king laughs, all of you have not in truth seen my sword. Noble son of Bodhisattva Mahasattva is also like that. He appears in the world and expounds the true nature of the self. After he has expounded it, he departs, as for example, like the prince who takes the wondrous sword and flees to another country. Foolish, ordinary people say, everybody has a self. Everybody has a self. Like the poor man who, lodging at another's house, cries out, the sword, the sword. Sravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas ask people, what attributes does the self have? To which they reply, I've seen the attributes of the self. It is the size of a thumb. Or they say, it is like a grain of rice, or it's like a grain of millet. Or there are some who say it's the self attribute to abide within the heart, burning like the sun. In this manner, people do not know the nature of the self, just as, for example, the various ministers do not know the nature of the sword. While a bodhisattva discourses thus about the quality of the self, ordinary people do not but impute various false concepts to the self. Just as when asked about the attributes of the sword, the ministers reply that it is like the horn of a ram. These ordinary people generate false views in succession from one to the other. In order to eliminate such false views, Shakyamuni Buddha reveals and discourses on the non-existence of a self. Just as when the prince tells his various ministers that there is no such sword in his treasury. Noble son, the true self that Shakyamuni Buddha expounds today is called the Buddha Dhatu, the Buddha nature. This manner of Buddha Dhatu is shown in the Buddha Dharma with the example of the real sword. Noble son, should there be any ordinary person who is able well to expound this, then he speaks in accordance with the unsurpassed Buddha Dharma. Should there be anyone who is able to distinguish this in accordance with what has been expounded regarding it, then you should know that he has the nature of a bodhisattva. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. This is our path. This is our goal. To attain that level of Bodhisattva Mahasattva, where we perceive, see, experience, and own our ninth consciousness, our Buddhahood, so that we can then know what being is. Right? If there's any truth to the word self, it is not a noun of something that is. It is a verb describing, or maybe an adverb, describing the condition of contemporaneous awakening, enlightenment, moment-to-moment experience of momentum, karma, being. Life is a verb, not a noun. And that ends this chapter. Thought we'd never get done, huh? Next chapter, on letters. This one's a fascinating one. So next time we get together, we will start chapter 13. In the meantime, if you have any questions or alliterations you want to contribute to chapter 12, please use the comments section. Let me know what you thought. I surely appreciate your participation, your practice most of all. And if you can support my work here, but I say our because we're all doing the same thing. If you can support what I do here in creating these resources, keep moving through it, correcting these books. I can't wait till I get done with the corrections so I can finally publish them. Thank you for your help in doing that. In the meantime, please take care of your health. Most important, if for no other reason than to continue savoring your practice. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, my friends. I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.